Hi, my name is Luca. I'm one of the partners of Simultools and creator of SimTiles. Today we're going through an overview of SimTiles. So we navigate to the SimTiles folder. It could be anywhere on your hard drive because SimTiles is self-contained. And just double click on the exe file. When launched, you'll find that you have two windows. One is the console, which is where SimTiles prints relevant information in real time of what it does, and the other is the actual SimTile user interface, which is where you basically run the software. SimTiles is divided into a number of tabs. Basically, the first two tabs are used to create tiles, effectively to basically create either night or seasonal tiles. And the first one is used to create a single scenery, and the second one is basically the same as the first one, but it can be used for batch processing. So you can actually create in here a list of sceneries to process. The third tab is the preset, and in here you have the preset in use, which is basically how you control what SimTiles does. You choose the output type, whether winter, seasonal tiles or night tiles, and the resolution, and then the presets in use, depending on the zoom level of your scenery and type of rule that you want to run. So what you choose in this preset tab is effectively run when you create a single or a batch process. Under preset, you also basically you can also go through and edit color rules or view what these color rules look like. You can edit this data here, and color rules are effectively variables, values in the form of colors and numbers, which are then fed into rules presets, which are effectively scripts. And basically these two control how images are manipulated and created. The next tab is preferences, which is basically where you have some global settings. Default settings are pretty good. One useful, we'll cover this in a moment actually. And the last one is change seasons, which is quite useful again. What this does is it's a one-click winter enabler, disabler, and it's basically a way of changing seasons in X-Plane, which is a first. So let's go back to create tiles, and basically we have a number of buttons. The idea that the way it works is that you choose a scenery to create tiles to, and let's say for instance we navigate to one of the pre-created ortho 4xp zoom level 17 scenery here. It's somewhere in Tuscany in Italy. And you choose the root folder of your scenery. Always choose the root folder of a scenery. Select the folder, and then basically once we select it under presets, what the type of operation that we want to process. For instance, we are creating now night tiles, 2K, zoom level 17, night clean. We go back to the create tiles for single scenery, and these buttons, basically the big green button, start, resume, texture creation, will basically effectively create night tiles, and stop is used to stop the creation process. And these two little buttons above, they basically enable and disable pre-existing night tiles. And this button is enabling it again, so for any existing night tile is effectively enabling it in X-Plane. And the other two buttons do similar things for seasonal tiles. So had you created winter tiles and you wanted to revert back to using normal summer and original tiles, you basically can disable winter with a click of a button, and here you can just enable winter again with a click of a button. And so that's what these buttons do. And create tiles for multiple sceneries. Basically, it works exactly the same way as for single scenery, but in here, this menu allows you to basically select multiple sceneries. Now I don't have another scenery to show you, but basically in the case of multiple photoreal sceneries, they will come up in a list, and in here you basically start the creation process using the preset as mentioned earlier. And the only difference is that this is now a batch process, so it will basically run the first scenery, and subsequently the second scenery in order. So this is quite useful when you have multiple tiles to process, multiple sceneries to process. It could be an overnight job, for instance. Presets, we covered it slightly. One very useful thing to know is that you can mix and match. So you can basically, for instance, create night tiles and subsequently create winter tiles for the same scenery. You can have and or these two different types. So you could actually have night tiles, which are effectively overlays sitting on top of either a seasonal winter tiles or the original photoreal tiles. This is quite useful, so you can basically you can choose what you want to process. And change season. Basically, once you have created your photoreal sceneries, you can basically once you have created seasonal tiles, what it does, it navigates to your custom folder, explain custom folder. Effectively what it does, it finds in here the scenery packs file, and from here it figures out where photoreal sceneries are, and from there basically for every created winter tiles, basically it will just enable the winter tiles or disable winter tiles. So let's say that you want to fly a nice summer flight, and you had previously created winter tiles for some of your sceneries. You basically, just before launching X-Plane, you fire up SimTiles and just click this button, disable seasonal tiles, boom, done. Next time you run your flight, you'll have your original photoreal textures showing as if it was summer. Similarly, let's say you wanted to now flight during the winter. You'd basically fire up SimTiles again and just click Enable Seasonal Tiles. Boom! It will go through every single custom scenery, find any existing seasonal tiles from SimTiles, and basically enable them. These processes, anything you see in here, all these buttons, anytime you press anything, you don't, it doesn't destroy. It basically runs a non-destructive, fully procedural process. So nothing is destroyed, and your original tiles exist in the same scenery folder where they were before, and there is nothing which is destroyed. And so you can enable, disable, and re-enable and re-disable things very, very quickly and very easily. Oh, and last but not least, preferences. It's quite a quick one. Basically, one of the useful checkboxes is verbose. So if you wanted to investigate what mode goes under the hood, what happens, you can click this button, and you'll have you'll be filled with a lot of more printouts of what actually is happening under the hood. You may as well leave it off. Overwrite existing output textures. It's useful if you know for sure that you want to overwrite existing tiles. I would just leave it off. Remove unused photo tiles. If he finds any unused tiles which are not needed by the definition files, he basically removes them. I would just leave them off again. Fix missing photo tiles. In case SimTiles finds that one terrain definition file is pointing to missing input tiles, effectively what it does, it sorts that out, but I would again leave that off, because usually what happens is that if X-Plane finds that a terrain or a polygon file points to a texture resource which is missing, it basically gives you an error and quits. So this is basically going to sort that out for you, but I would just leave it off. Usually, it would mean in such case that you had a broken scenery to begin with, which is quite unlikely. check for updates. It's quite useful. It's basically if if Simultools releases a new version of SimTiles, basically the next time you launch SimTiles, a warning would come up saying that basically there is a newer version available. User elevation data is quite useful, and it must be on in order to make use of the elevation height to change rules based on height. So you definitely want this on. Processing photo tiles of size greater than this number. What it does is that if the input tile is quite low res or quite small, effectively it will definitely give you a poor night or winter result because you wouldn't have enough data inside. Let's say that sometimes tiles created with like G2X plane or Ortho4XP might come with some broken or quite low res or really poor input tiles. Basically, this is a threshold that if the input tile is too small, effectively too low res, or the resolution is too slow, it basically skips it. That's it. This is the overview. Oh, we have the drop down at the top. Check for updates. About. There you go. This version is up to date now. About, with some useful info you'll need to read. Navigate to documentation, which is basically pointing to the website where you can find the FAQ, the manual, the log, change log, downloads, which is again pointing to the resources on the website. Basically, at the end we have the exit button. That's it. This is an overview of SimTiles. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I shed some light on it. Thanks a lot for watching.